The heavy scent of expensive sandalwood and floor wax always preceded Harmony's arrival in the grand corridors of Sayu Jisu's mansion. To the men who paced these halls with guns tucked into their waistbands, she was merely a moving part of the architecture, as significant as a baseboard or a door hinge. She moved with a practiced, rhythmic grace, the soft squeak of her rubber soles on marble lost beneath the aggressive shouting of men in suits. Because they viewed her as nothing, they spoke as if she were deaf. They left ledgers open as if she were illiterate. They plotted murders and calculated bribes while she polished the silver just inches away, never realizing that behind her lowered gaze, Harmony Nina was cataloging every name, every shipment, and every betrayal. Welcome to Twist of Feral TV. Say hi in the comments if you are watching. If you stop in the middle of this story, you will have dreams wondering how it ended, so make sure to stay until the final revelation. The morning began in the West Wing, where the air was thick with the residue of late-night cigars. Harmony knelt to scrub a dark, sticky smudge from the rug, a stain the young enforcer Sook claimed was spilled wine, though the metallic tang of blood filled her nostrils. As she worked, Shio leaned against the doorframe, complaining loudly about a shipment of imported goods that had been intercepted at the Incheon docks. He didn't lower his voice when Harmony passed by with her bucket. He simply stepped over her arm as if she were a puddle. He didn't see the way her eyes flickered toward the manifest sticking out of his breast pocket, memorizing the serial numbers. By noon, she was in the boss's private study, the inner sanctum where the walls were lined with ancient Korean art and modern security monitors. Sayu Jisu sat behind his mahogany desk, his sharp features twisted in a snarl as he berated a terrified subordinate. "I need men who are ghosts," he hissed, his neck tattoo rippling with every movement of his jaw. "I need loyalty that doesn't leave a footprint." Harmony stood in the corner, dusting a porcelain vase with agonizing slowness. She watched the reflection in the glass of a framed painting. She saw Jisoo open his floor safe, the one he thought was invisible to all but his elite, and saw him tuck a small, singed object into a velvet-lined drawer. He looked directly at her, his eyes cold and dismissive. "Finished and get out," he snapped, flicking a hand as if shooing a fly. Harmony bowed low, her face a mask of subservience. As she retreated, her heart hammered against her ribs. She had seen the combination. She had seen the fear in his eyes when he touched that small object. The mafia thought she was a ghost in the hall, but as she closed the heavy oak doors, Harmony knew the truth. A ghost is the only thing that can walk through walls and see exactly where the bodies are buried. The following morning, the atmosphere in the mansion was stifling, heavy with the aftermath of a midnight crisis. Harmony moved through the inner sanctum with her usual silent precision, her eyes downcast as she gathered the debris of Sayu Jisu's late-night rage. Shattered glass from a crystal decanter lay scattered across the hardwood like fallen diamonds, and the trash bin was overflowing with shredded documents, the remains of a failed deal or a purged secret. To anyone else, it was just garbage, but to Harmony, it was a puzzle. As she emptied the bin into her cart, a peculiar flash of color caught her eye, buried beneath the white strips of paper. It was a small, singed photograph, its edges curled and blackened by a flame that hadn't finished its job. Harmony's heart gave a violent thud against her ribs as she fished it out, concealing it instantly beneath her cleaning cloth. She waited until she was tucked into the narrow confines of the service elevator before she dared to look. The image was old, grainy, and clearly taken in secret. It didn't show the high-glamour life of a mafia king. Instead, it depicted a younger Sayu Jisu standing in a rain-slicked alleyway, bowing deeply to a man whose face was partially obscured, but whose distinctive ring identified him as the patriarch of the rival Japanese clan Jisu claimed to despise. The weight of the discovery made Harmony's hands tremble. This wasn't just a memory. It was evidence of a blood treason that predated his rise to power. If his enforcers, especially the traditionalist Sook, knew their pure leader had once been a foot soldier for their enemies, Jisu's empire would be dismantled by his own men before the sun went down. She realized then that the cockroach he mocked didn't just have wings, she had a predator's leverage. Harmony carefully tucked the photo into the hidden lining of her uniform, right against her skin. The heat of the burnt paper felt like a brand. 4 years, she had been a ghost watching a monster, but as the elevator doors groaned open to the main lobby, she knew the roles had shifted. She wasn't just cleaning up his messes anymore. She was holding the one piece of trash that could bury him alive. The value of that single, charred square of paper was worth more than every gold bar in the basement safe. It was the price of her freedom. The dining hall was a cathedral of glass and cold steel, designed to intimidate as much as to entertain. That evening, Seiyu Jisoo was hosting the K-Alliance, a collection of rivals and sharks who smelled blood in the water every time the market dipped. To prove his dominance, Jisoo hadn't just brought out his best whiskey, he had brought out his most submissive servant. He had ordered Harmony to wear an outdated, restrictive lace uniform, forcing her to stand perfectly still behind his chair like a decorative statue while the men laughed and traded threats. The air was thick with the smell of roasted duck and arrogance. "You see this?" Jisoo said, gesturing lazily toward Harmony without looking at her. He spoke in English, making sure his international guests understood his disdain. "In my house, even the most stubborn things are tamed. She came from nothing, thinking she had a voice. Now, she is just part of the furniture." He reached back and flicked droplets of wine toward her white apron, watching the red stain spread like a fresh wound. The table erupted in cruel laughter. Suk and Shio stood by the doors, their faces unreadable, though Suk's eyes narrowed as he watched the boss push the humiliation further. Jisoo commanded Harmony to pour a glass for his most hated rival, Yamamoto, but as she leaned in, he intentionally nudged her arm. The wine splashed onto Yamamoto's expensive suit. The room went deathly silent. Jisoo didn't apologize. Instead, he barked a laugh and looked at the girl. "Look at how clumsy she is. Down on your knees, Nina. Clean the gentleman's shoes. Show them how well I have trained you to serve." The humiliation was a physical weight, pressing down on Harmony's shoulders. She felt the eyes of 10 powerful men on her, waiting for her to break, to cry, or to crawl. But as she slowly lowered herself to the floor, her hand brushed against the hidden lining of her uniform where the burnt photograph lay tucked away. The sharp edge of the paper pricked her skin, a reminder of the lightning bolt she held in her pocket. She knelt at Yamamoto's feet, the silk of her uniform rustling in the silence. As she wiped the wine from the leather, she didn't look like a woman defeated. She looked like a predator hiding in plain sight. The tension in the mansion had shifted from a simmer to a low boil. As Harmony moved through the corridors, she could feel the weight of eyes on her, not the dismissive, glancing blows of the past, but the sharp, analytical gaze of men who lived by detecting threats. Shio and Suk, Jisoo's most trusted shadows, had stopped seeing a maid and started seeing a variable they couldn't calculate. It began in the tactical room. Harmony was changing the waistliners while the two men leaned over a map of the Busan shipping yards. Usually, a servant's presence would have no impact on their conversation, but today, Shio fell silent the moment the door creaked open. He watched her hands. He noticed they didn't shake, even as Suk intentionally dropped a heavy combat knife onto the table to startle her. Harmony didn't jump. She simply picked up the knife by the hilt, set it back in its sheath with a steady hand, and continued her work. "She's too quiet," Suk muttered in Korean once she was down the hall, unaware that Harmony understood every syllable. A girl like her, after the way the boss treated her at the banquet, she should be weeping in the laundry room. Or she should be looking for a way out. But she looks like she's looking for something else. Shio narrowed his eyes, remembering the way she had stood in the dining hall, the power diagonal of her posture that seemed to defy her station. "She doesn't walk like a servant anymore," he agreed, his voice a low rasp. "She walks like someone who knows the floor plan better than the architect. And she spends too much time near the boss's study when the cleaning isn't required." His face draining of all color until he looked like a wax figure. The lighter fell from his grip, clattering onto the mahogany desk. The maid was gone. In her place stood the woman who held the match to his entire world. The breaking point had passed, and the hunt had officially begun. Thank you so much to my incredible audience for staying with us until the very end of this journey. Your support means everything. From the first insult to this final victory, you've been here to witness Harmony's transformation. If you loved this status flip ending, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Twist of Feral TV. We have so many more twists coming your way, besties. Stay fierce, stay observant, and remember, Never underestimate the person who sees everything. See you in the next story.